I was a kid the first time I saw those black and white films where a man fell in love and his friends tried to talk him out of it. I thought they were cowards. I thought love was the only plot worth living. 5 decades later, after a marriage that looked good on paper and felt tight in the chest, I finally understand what they were trying to say. If you are over 45, if the word commitment makes your shoulders rise, I am talking to you. Stay with me to the end. I am not here to poison love. I am here to describe what happens when love becomes a bad fit and you keep squeezing yourself into it anyway. My life looked American in all the standard ways. A cul-de-sac with trimmed lawns and flagpoles. A lab mix that slept by the back door. A joint family calendar with color-coded boxes. Work dinners in blue. Basketball practice in orange. Couples therapy in yellow that faded on the paper but not in real life. I told myself this was what a man does. You marry. You shoulder the load. You trade small pieces of yourself for the picture on the fridge. One Thursday in late spring, a storm rolled through. Not the dramatic kind. Just the kind that leaves branches on the sidewalk and water in the basement. I came home late from the warehouse to a note about a forgotten bill, a dripping laundry room, and a dinner that had gone cold. It was small. It was domestic. It was nothing you would tell a friend about. But it was the night I stood in my own kitchen and realized I could list 100 things that belonged to our life and not one that still belonged to me. The calendar felt like a warden. The house felt like a sentence. My promises were the bars. No one forced me to make them. I forged them myself. One good intention at a time. When I say prison, I am not talking about evil guards or iron doors. I am talking about habits that lock from the inside. I am talking about a budget you cannot steer without a fight. I am talking about dreams that no longer make it to the whiteboard because someone always needs a ride, a signature, or your apology. I am talking about that slow erosion, where every small surrender seems reasonable until the shoreline of who you are is gone. In those years, I became excellent at work and poor at wanting anything for myself. I said yes before I knew what I was saying yes to. I made peace with the idea that long weekends were for other people. I measured success by how little I needed. I wish I could tell you the house was cruel. It was not. It was lovely. A prison can have a brand new fridge. A prison can have fresh mulch and a flag out front. What makes it a prison is the simple truth that you no longer choose. If you feel a flicker of recognition, this is your invitation. I am not promising a hero story. I do not have a yacht or a private jet. I have a quiet apartment. I have a reliable truck. I have a passport with fresh stamps. And I have the first honest mornings I have had since my 20s. I am going to show you how an ordinary man gets trapped. I am going to show you the crack in the wall. I am going to show you the day the gate swings open. And I am going to tell you what the air smells like on the road outside. Some of you will decide to repair what you have. Some of you will decide to leave. Either way, you will need the same thing. You will need to tell the truth to yourself in a full voice. For me, the truth began with 3 pillars. Time I did not control. Money I did not direct. Goals I no longer set. Every Sunday night we ran the week like a small company. Color-coded boxes. 5 kinds of logistics. By Thursday the boxes had swallowed the days and I was nowhere on the schedule. When I did carve out an hour for the gym or a book, something else arrived with a louder horn. Money was similar. We were not reckless. We were responsible in the way responsible people are responsible. Which is to say we paid every bill and postponed anything that looked like a dream. I told myself it was noble. But a noble life without choice becomes a tidy cell. The last pillar was goals. Early in marriage we had a whiteboard full of plans. Move west. Open a small shop. Take a month to drive the coast. By the middle years the board had grocery lists and dentist appointments. The big plans went into a shoebox on a closet shelf. I did not blame my wife. I blamed my silence. I blamed the way I let the calendar choose for me. I blamed the way I confused being a good man with being an eraser. That confusion turned love into a negotiation where my side never asked for anything. If this sounds familiar, keep listening. We are headed for the doctor's office. We are headed for a conference room with stale coffee and a mediator. We are headed for a front porch where the air feels different and the silence is finally kind. The crack appeared in a white room that smelled like alcohol swabs and lemon cleaner. It was a routine physical. The nurse wrapped the cuff around my arm and raised an eyebrow at the numbers. She tried again. Then the doctor came in, a calm man with gray at his temples, and asked about my stress. I laughed because I did not have war stories. No one was screaming at me. There were no police reports or broken plates or scandal. There was only a long hallway of small promises that never led outside. He asked what I did for myself in a given week. I said I drove my son to practice. I said I covered a late shift for a manager whose wife had the flu. I said I fixed a fence post after work and paid 3 bills at the kitchen table. He waited. I had nothing else to add. He talked about blood pressure and risk. He talked about how the human body keeps a ledger. He told me if I kept living like this, I would trade years for a peace that was not really peace. I walked out into sunlight that felt too bright, and I sat in my truck and turned the key without starting the engine. I watched people push carts across the parking lot of the clinic. I watched a couple in their 70s argue about a forgotten appointment and then laugh and hold hands. It hit me that I did not want to be rescued from love. I wanted to be rescued from the version of myself that could not say what he needed. At home, I took the whiteboard down. I put it on the kitchen table and stared at the dents and scratches. I wrote 3 questions. What do you want to feel when you wake up? What do you want to learn before you die? What will you regret if you do not change? I did not share the board that night. I folded laundry and fixed the drip in the laundry room. I reheated dinner and set an alarm for trash day. But I knew a wall had cracked. Once light finds a crack, it keeps coming. In counseling, we were polite and competent. We used the right words. We talked about listening and needs and boundaries. I realized I had one boundary, and it was the size of a state line. I needed to steer my hours and my money and my goals again. I could not outsource that and keep my health. The mediator's office came a month later. A soft carpet. 2 pens that did not work until you scribbled on the margin. We agreed on more than most people do. We put the kids first because we had always put the kids first, even when it cost us. We were kind in the way long companions can be kind. There was a moment with a second mortgage form, and I felt the old reflex to say yes. The old reflex is powerful. It dresses itself up as generosity and decency. It whispers that good men sign now and figure it out later. I put the pen down and asked for a night to think. That night I walked the neighborhood. The storm debris was gone and the sidewalks were clean. I passed the house with the swing on the porch and the house with the basketball hoop over the garage. I tried to picture myself here 10 more years. The picture would not come into focus. I tried to picture myself elsewhere. In a smaller place with light in the morning and the sound of my own footsteps. That picture showed up fast. I do not believe divorce is a shortcut. It is a marathon that you did not train for. But every hard thing I have done in life has started with a sentence I said out loud alone. And this one was no different. I said it on the corner of Westbrook Court, under a streetlight that hummed. I said I am going to stop living like this. When I told my wife I was leaving, we did not shout. We cried. And then we made a plan. We told the kids together. We drew a schedule. We called our parents and told them they did not have to take sides. If you are still with me, this next part is the gate. It does not swing open with a cheer. It opens with a hinge that needs oil and a sound you feel more than hear. But when it opens, the air moves. You will know it. Moving day was not cinematic. It was cardboard and dust bunnies and a run to the hardware store for more tape. I carried out the whiteboard and set it in the passenger seat. I put my boots on the mat and sat for a long minute before turning the key. The apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up with a view of a grocery store sign. It was quiet in a way that made my ribs feel too big for my chest. The first night I cooked omelets and burned them. I laughed alone and ate them anyway. I slept a kind of sleep I had not slept in years. The next morning I woke without an alarm and drove to a park on the edge of town. I walked until my calves ached, and then I kept walking. I used to think solitude was a verdict. It turns out solitude is a tool. The first Friday I took myself to a baseball game. I bought a ticket at the window and sat high enough to see the river. A father and son argued about whether to get nachos or hot dogs and then bought both. I cheered for a team that had not been mine since college and felt like I belonged anyway. On the way home, I stopped for groceries and realized I could buy exactly what I wanted and nothing I did not. If you think this is a commercial for selfishness, you are missing the point. I did not start saying no to love. I started saying yes to responsibility that is mine alone. The responsibility to care for a body the cardiologist had warned me about. The responsibility to steer a career that had been idling in a safe lane. The responsibility to be a father who shows his kids what honest living looks like when a plan changes. Work changed first. I stopped volunteering for every late shift. I trained 2 younger managers and watched them get good. I left on time twice a week and used the hour for the gym and a book. When I did stay late, it was because I chose to. Not because I was trying to earn forgiveness for wanting something of my own. Money changed next. I made a budget that matched my values instead of my fears. I paid what I owed and saved more than I thought I could. I set aside a line for adventure, which is a polite word for the part of you that refuses to die. Sundays changed most. I drove to see my daughter at school and we ate breakfast at a diner where the coffee is always too hot. We talked about classes and the books she loved. We did not talk about custody or calendars. We talked like 2 people who trust each other. With my son, I hiked a trail we had never tried. We were quiet for long stretches, and then we argued about the best burger in town and laughed. There were hard nights. The apartment can feel small when a holiday ends and your kids go back to their other home. On those nights, I cleaned the kitchen and watched a film I loved at 20, and I wrote one line on the whiteboard. The line was a promise. Do not go back to sleep while you are still awake. I did not become a monk. I dated with caution and respect. I did not audition for a replacement life. I learned to enjoy a good dinner and an honest conversation, and then say goodnight at the door. I learned that intimacy without ownership is possible when you are clear and kind. A year in, the doctor shook his head and smiled at the new numbers. He asked what changed. I told him I went looking for the man I was before I taught myself to disappear. I told him I started choosing again. He wrote something in the chart and said he wished more men my age would do the same. If you are wondering whether the air truly feels different outside the gate, it does. It smells like cut grass and coffee and highway. It smells like a bookshop on a rainy day. It smells like the inside of your truck, when you roll the windows down and drive with no music and hear your own pulse settle. I am not going to pretend every morning is victory. Some mornings are ordinary. Some mornings I miss the sound of a house waking up. But most mornings I stand by the sink with the window open and I feel something I cannot find a better word for than relief. The outside life is not a parade. It is rhythm. It is the habit of choosing. It is knowing what hours are yours and spending them like they matter. I travel more now. Not to run away from the past, but to look it in the eye from a distance. I took a long drive down the coast and stopped in small towns where the diner coffee tastes the same and the conversation is kind. I learned that time alone expands. It makes space for things that were trying to live in the margins. I picked up my guitar again and played until my fingers hurt the way they did when I was 19. I taught myself 3 recipes well enough to feed the people I love without burning the pan. I called old friends and forgave each other for the years when we were too busy being brave in all the wrong ways. My daughter told me she was proud of me. My son asked me why I did not do this sooner, and then hugged me like he was also answering his own question. We are not a broken family. We are a family that changed shape. There is a myth that freedom is selfish. What I have learned is gentler. Freedom is responsibility with the volume turned up. It amplifies everything. If you are kind, you become kinder. If you are careless, you will see it faster. Freedom does not fix your character. It removes the fog so you can. When people ask what I regret, I say I regret pretending I did not have needs. I regret teaching the people I love that I would always be fine. I regret how long I mistook silence for strength. If you are listening to this in a driveway outside a house that looks like a postcard, I am not here to tell you to leave. I am here to tell you to choose. Choose to speak plainly. Choose to ask for hours that belong to you. Choose a budget that matches your values. Choose a plan that lets you wake up a braver version of yourself. If you do that and your marriage changes shape, honor that. If you do that and your marriage gets stronger, honor that too. A friend asked me if I believe in marriage now. I said I believe in 2 people who can choose side by side without one of them erasing. I believe in commitment to the right things at the right time. I believe in families that tell the truth faster. I believe in love that does not need a hostage. The last time I drove past the old house, I slowed down and looked at the porch. The flag was out. The lawn was perfect. The calendar I left behind is printing new boxes for someone else. I am not the man who lived there. I am the man who finally walked himself to the gate and stepped through. If this story held a mirror up, even for a minute. I hope you saw a version of yourself worth rescuing. If you are a man in your 50s who thinks it is too late, it is not. If you are a woman who has been waiting for the man you love to show up whole, he is on the way. If you are a son or daughter who wonders if your parents will be okay, we are learning how to be. I will leave you with the question on my whiteboard. What do you want to feel when you wake up? Answer it out loud. Then answer it with your feet. This is what I learned after escaping the prison of marriage. The bars were agreements I made with the wrong part of myself. The key was small and lived in my pocket the whole time. It was the word, choose. I say it every morning now. I say it like a prayer.